Is this the most exciting product launch of 2021? We've seen TaylorMade Sim 2, we've seen Rad Speed, we've seen Epic Speed, we've also seen the P790, but for me personally, as a low handicap golfer, this new Ping i59 is the most exciting product launch this year. I used iBlade for many years, from 5 years ago it was originally launched, and this is finally replacing it. We're going to give it a really good thorough test here at the stunning Wellingborough Golf Club to see exactly how it performs, how it compares with the iBlade, and to give you an insight into what you can expect from this brand new club from Ping. So what have Ping done with this iron to move it on from what we saw with the iBlade? Obviously 5 years in the making, and I think the big story with this club is there's an aluminium core inside this hollow head. So it's not a one-piece forging, it's not a blade, it's a hollow head. This core is a third the density of the steel that surrounds it. So essentially it's a weight-saving exercise, it's also a feel-enhancing exercise to give you better feel, better forgiveness, better stability on those slight off-center hits. The other thing Ping have done with this iron in particular is change the configuration of the grooves on the face. So you'll notice there's a lot more grooves on here, 4 more grooves than the iBlade iron, and that's to give you better performance from the rough. So reducing the amount of flies you get on those short irons and also giving you a bit more consistent spin on those long iron shots. And the final thing Ping have done with this iron is they've increased the perimeter weighting. So with heel and toe weight, they say they've raised the MOI, or the forgiveness of this club, up to the level of the i210, which we know is that kind of cavity back iron in the range. A lot of tour players use it, but it's definitely a larger profile than the i59. So it's interesting that Ping have packed in that level of forgiveness into what is a relatively compact club. I think you'd agree, it looks absolutely stunning. Let's hit some shots with it, see how it performs, to see what you can expect. So in terms of how this iron looks, I think the new Ping i59 is one of the better looking irons we've seen launched in recent years. Really clean, classic design, nice clean lines. Looks like a beefed up blueprint, to be honest. And actually compared to iBlade, which is a bit more of a compact cavity back, Ping have kept the level of offset, the blade length, and the bounce angle on the sole the same, but they're saying the sole on the i59 is actually a little bit narrower. To me it looks very similar, to be honest, but Ping are saying it's narrower. But down behind the ball, the i59 I would say just does have a slightly thinner top line, which will appeal to those better players. You can obviously notice the extra grooves on the face, but particularly the bottom groove, which is white, is slightly shorter than the other grooves, and I think that actually helps frame the ball a bit more centrally and really narrow your focus on the strike. So it's something you see with wedges sometimes, but you don't necessarily see it with irons, and I think that really works with this new i59. So we're going to hit some shots. We've got a pin down there 152 yards away because we're into the wind here on the 17th at Wellingborough Golf Club. You might have noticed they moved the pin from when we shot the intro, but don't get confused. It is 152 yards. And before we hit some shots, I'll just flash up the launch monitor data. We hit these on the GC2 launch monitor with Titleist Pro One X golf balls to get some kind of data to kind of quantify how the i59 compares with the Ping iBlade. And in terms of those numbers, the key takeaways I would have from that testing session was that the i59 is definitely giving you a little bit more speed consistently. So it's given me a higher launch. These irons are both the same length and they are the same loft, so 34 degrees in both, and it was launching over a degree higher than the iBlade, and it was spinning 700 RPM less, which is quite significant from generation to generation in a club that's lofted the same. So clearly these irons are designed very differently inside the head to give you slightly lower spin, but that higher launch and higher flight is therefore giving you the stopping power. So I think it's an iron that's going to perform just as well as iBlade in terms of into greens. But the other thing I took away from the i59 testing was how consistent it was. So the drop-offs in ball speed were much lower with i59 than they were with iBlade. The dispersion front to back was a lot tighter on the launch monitor. So interesting to see if that translates to the shots we can hit on the golf course. So I've got 6 balls, can hit 3 with i59, 3 with iBlade. We'll go and see where they finish. Oh, be good. Oh, it's definitely a little bit higher, which is going to hurt me into the wind with the i59, but actually feels like it sounds a little bit louder, a bit more kind of pingy. It still feels soft and solid, but I actually think maybe the iBlade feels a touch softer, but maybe that's because it's more of a hollow head rather than a kind of cavity back. But we've hit some good shots with both of these irons. Let's go and see where they finished up on the green. Okay, so we're up by the green, and the first observation I would make is that all the shots have finished short of the pin, even though I thought I hit them quite well. So maybe the wind was a little bit stronger than I thought, or maybe that high flight does hurt you a little bit more into the wind. But you'll see there's a clear difference between the shots I hit with i59 versus iBlade. So this is the best shot I hit, and this is with the i59. And as we move forward or away from the pin, you know, you've got this shot here is probably the second best one. That was also with an i59. And then this one here was also with an i59. Then you see, compare that with where the shots finished with iBlade. So you've got one over there, which is a little bit of a pull, went a little bit further, but I struck it pretty well. This one I thought I've hit really, really well with iBlade. And you can see it's come up a good 2 yards shorter than this shot with the i59. And then that one over there was, I thought, a pretty good strike with iBlade, but it's finished a long way short and to the right. So kind of two takeaways I'd have from the results of these shots with i59 versus iBlade. Clearly the i59 is giving me a little bit more distance and speed versus iBlade. One thing I would mention is that the i59 is actually fitted with a slightly different shaft. So this is the Project X LS shaft, so low spin. We talked about the data earlier, how the i59 was giving me 700 RPM low spin. Much of that might be down to the shaft, but you can see that's actually giving me a little bit more distance into the wind. So that might be an option you would think about. Obviously go through a custom fitting process. This is one of the stock options available. It's definitely seemed to work for me. And the second takeaway is that there seems to be a little bit more forgiveness or help on those off-center hits in terms of correcting your accuracy and your distance. So yeah, I thought these shots with iBlade were pretty good. They weren't perfect, but as a 5 handicap golfer, you'd expect that. But the dispersion is a lot wider with those iBlade shots. So clearly there's been a bit of a step up here with i59 in terms of that consistency, not of distance, but also of direction as well. So interesting to see the results, but clearly the i59 is a little bit ahead of where we were with iBlade. Okay, so Ping i59. For me, it delivers on pretty much every front I'm looking for. As a low handicap golfer, you're looking for a good feel, you're looking for consistency of distance, you're looking for a tight dispersion. And I think this actually delivers on all those fronts. I really enjoyed the ball striking experience of this club. Through the ground, it feels really solid, gives you nice crisp turf interaction, nice big divots, but it's quite forgiving as well. Through the ground, feels really nice. Looks great as well. And compared to iBlade, I think there is a bit of a step up in performance, certainly around forgiveness and launch. You might be worried about that ball flight going a little bit too high, but if you go through that custom fitting process, you can dial that in. It does come in a power spec as well if you want to de-loft it and get a little bit more distance. But for me, as a 5 handicap golfer, I'm not looking for extra distance, I'm looking for consistency. This iron clearly delivers that versus iBlade. I'm really excited to give it more of a long-term test, maybe even put it in the bag. It's going to be a tough one to boot out my P770s from TaylorMade, but it's definitely a contender for my bag because of that all-round performance that it offers. So comment down below, tell us what you thought of this review. Hopefully you found it useful in ascertaining exactly what the performance from the Ping i59 iron is all about. I'd love to hear from you. Do click the like button if you like what you're watching. Subscribe to the Golf Monthly YouTube channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any of our golf equipment review videos. But that's all from me from the beautiful Wellingborough Golf Club. I'll see you next time.